they were friends, but they were also slight rivals in terms of each one thought he was the better master and that had the better knowledge and the better abilities and so on. But they were friends. They were on friendly terms, and just themselves are completely separate. So Master Zhang Feng is more of a Shaolin origin, and Master Zhou is very much Taoist. Does the navel chakra feel the same as the Dantian to me? Like, no, it doesn't.
Do they have maybe not 72 levels, or do they, or do they have something like that? Or okay, so today we are here with Rudi from Authentic Nigong. Honestly, Rudi was in my top 5 people that I wanted to interview on the list. So I'm super, super excited to have Rudi today and ask him all the amazing questions. He's a phenomenal Nigong teacher, and so many of his students I'm like, online friends with, and they told me a lot of incredible things about him. And I just always got this really good vibe from Rudi ever since I saw him on Trevor's show, and I've always wanted to connect with him. So I'm super honored to have him today. So Rudi, could you tell me a little bit about how you got started in your spiritual journey?
Okay, I am. Hi, and you're very kind. I don't think I deserve such praise, but I've always been interested in meditation. Even when I was a teenager, I was looking in ways to enhance memory, enhance intelligence, and so on. And, then I got into the more spiritual aspect of it, learning from books as most do. And then I saw the Ring of Fire documentary with John Chang, and I was interested if it was real or not. And then I found a way to contact Master Zhang Feng. And I emailed and I got a reply. I mean, obviously not him, but somebody replying on his behalf. And he told me that he would be in Indonesia and I could come and see him. And I flew over and I saw him and I experienced, Qi for the first time, and kind of blew my mind. And then I decided to dedicate my life to seeing if it was real or not, because you can't really know it's real until you can do it yourself. So that kind of put me on the path to studying Qigong and Neigong. And in the pursuits of that, I got really interested in medicine, and then I started pursuing TCM, like Chinese medicine and so on. And that's what I've been doing for the past 11, 12 years now, is studying as much Neigong as is possible, as much as is offered up to me, and working as a doctor and enhancing my ability to help people's health and so on. So yeah, it was curiosity, if anything.
Oh, very cool. Rudi, you mentioned that you're a doctor, so you're like a Chinese medicine doctor, or you're
Yeah.
actually...
Yes, I'm a Chinese medicine doctor. I did a 5-year degree at the Shanghai University Shanghai International University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, so SHU TCM.
Oh,
So
cool.
I hold a degree in Chinese medicine, and then the last 10 years with all these teachers, because all of them are doctors anyway, I've been learning as much as I can from them as well.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Is there any I mean, is there any cool stories you could possibly share of Master Zhou or Master Jiang by chance? Like what is personally for you the most impressive thing you've seen them do?
I mean, Master Zhang, I never really saw anything past what most people have seen. So my coolest story with him is actually a kind of it's a bad story, but it's for me it was quite amazing. So we had somebody go on the trip who was adamant that it was all fake, and he kind of went crazy and he went to the police. And I had to go to the police station to make a statement, and Master Zhang Feng was driving me to the police station, and I was sat in the back, and I felt really bad because I took the guy on the trip, but I was also, I was like, I felt this is really cool because I'm sat in the back of Master Zhang Feng's, car, and he's driving me. So that's a completely, it's not really Qi related, but for me that was this kind of profound moment of, oh wow, in the back of his car, this is really cool. But with Master Zhou, I think the biggest thing was we were doing, I mean, there's really two things to me that really stood out. So we were doing removing a spirit from somebody, and halfway through the procedure, the guy's face completely physically changed and morphed into this old man. And I saw it, and the people that were in the room saw it as well. and it was just kind of crazy to see. So his whole face kind of scrunched up, and his nose kind of changed, and he just turned into this old man on the table, and it was really, really interesting to see. Um, and then later, when I asked Master Joe about it, he said, "Yeah, I mean, if the spirit completely comes forward, the voice will change, the face will change, everything will change." So it was a very cool experience. And then later, there was a Guanyin statue that he was giving to somebody, and he wanted to bless and activate the statue. And up until that point, I thought all these kind of ceremonies they did were just it was just a ceremony for the sake of doing a ceremony. But when he did this blessing, the entire room kind of became electrified, and you could see all these kind of little sparks in the air, and you could see the figure of a person standing in front of the Guanyin statue as he was doing this invocation to kind of invite Guanyin to bless the statue and to kind of look after the owner of it. So that was really, really cool to see as well. And that's a big part of where my interest lies nowadays, is the more Shen based kind of spiritual stuff, as opposed to just the fa chi. Just the chi I mean, it's great, it's good for health and so on, but I have a big interest in the the stuff that comes afterwards. All these deities and so on that back in the day I didn't really believe was a thing that was actually true, but that day kind of changed things for me. So that was really interesting to see. And again, there was a couple of us in the room, so all of us saw the same thing. It wasn't just me imagining stuff, but yeah, very interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. So you said that you have more interest in the Shen stuff. So is that the most, I'm assuming that's the most profound experience that you encounter when it comes to the Shen stuff, or the encounters with deities and
No, not necessarily.
oh, okay. Is there
Um,
more stories you can possibly share?
well, not necessarily stuff that they've done, but when you get to a certain stage of development and you start doing meditation, and you you end up, I mean, I don't want to call it a daydream, because it's not really a daydream. It's all, it seems quite real when it's happening, but it's hard to know. And that you experience incredible things, and you meet various beings that will come and visit you and kind of talk to you and take you to places and show you how things work. So these are all very interesting experiences, but I think it's the kind of thing that you can't really prove is real. So I don't really talk about them all that much. But yeah, so there's really cool things that do happen later on in practice. But they're very kind of individual, and everybody has the same experiences when it happens. I was talking to Master Joe the one day, and we were kind of sharing experiences and so on, and a lot of the earlier stuff that he was talking about I'd experienced, and then he started talking about the stuff that I hadn't experienced yet. And it's an interesting thing, but I think it's something you don't really talk about because you can't really prove anything. And it's even though everybody has the same experience and everybody kind of goes through the same stages of development, it's I don't really think it's the kind of thing that you should talk about too much, because people start imagining that they're experiencing things that should happen naturally.
Right, right. Right. Rudy, so obviously Master Jiang tragically died, unfortunately, and it's a very sad thing. Um, yeah, was like Master Jiang's community pretty devastated, and like was it a really difficult thing for Master Jiang's like entire community over in China, or could you tell me a little bit about that
I
tragic
mean,
event?
of course, if you think about it, this great man who had built these hospitals and stuff had just passed away, and he passed away because he just didn't think about his own safety. He was so the time when he had passed away, that was actually the second time that something like that had happened. So the previous time something like that happened, he recovered fully, but a good friend of mine was actually there when it happened, and he was pushing himself too much, and he just kind of collapsed. And so that happened a year before he finally passed away, and then he did the same thing again. So there was obviously a lot of sadness, but then there was a lot of anger as well. People were really angry that he did it, because why would you do something so dangerous just for the sake of one patient when he was helping so many people? So it was devastating for myself. It was really devastating as well. I didn't really know where to go from there. I was just kind of unsure of what to do. And that's when I went to university, and I was like, well, I've got this big interest in medicine, and I can't really learn it from him now. So what I'll do for the time being is just get a basic foundation, and then see if I can find a different teacher later on. But yeah, it was devastating for everyone involved, for his family especially. But I mean, afterwards, both the hospitals that he opened had closed down, and it was, yeah, it affected a lot of people. There was a lot of sadness, and a couple of years afterwards, me and this close friend that I'm talking about, Jem, we went to Anhui, went to his hometown, and went to visit his grave, and just kind of said our farewells and so on. But yeah, it was a very sad time. But
Right, right. To those people that are embarking on this Qi journey that wants to learn Nigong and do Nigong and stuff, it's really important to keep in mind how dangerous it can possibly be if you get to a certain level. I feel like, and that's something that probably people need to keep in mind if you want to do Fachi and telekinesis and things like that. You can, if you overexert yourself, you can, possibly, die.
you can die. No, you 100% can die. It's even at the lower levels, you definitely can die. So, I was practicing at one point. This was back before COVID actually happened, so 2019 or 18. I don't remember exactly when. But my Dantian capacity had increased massively, and my channels were really open, and I was super excited to just kind of practice Fachi and so on. So Master Zhou said, "Oh, just kind of have at it," and I think there were 15 or 16 people there, and I was like, okay, I'll just do everybody. So I did, a couple of seconds on each arm, and I was just practicing. And by the 10th person, I started feeling a bit wobbly, but I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to keep going. And when I did all 15, I kind of felt like I was going to collapse. I felt like I was walking on clouds. I was all dizzy. I was kind of falling over the place, and Master Joe was laughing, and he was like, I was waiting for you to collapse because, why would you push yourself so much? Like 16 people in a row without any break. It's ridiculous. Like, why would you do it? And I was like, well, I was waiting for you to kind of tell me to stop. I expected you to kind of step in when I'd done too much, but he didn't. And it was probably like 2 or 3 hours of me kind of falling all over the place and being really, really unwell. I wanted to throw up. I couldn't walk properly. I felt like I was walking on clouds and stuff. It was really horrible. And a bit of rest and a bit of food, and slowly I started coming back and so on. But Master Joe was there, so I wasn't too worried. I knew he would be able to help if something went really badly wrong. But yeah, so that was me, with him, just kind of pushing myself too much and kind of draining chi. Because once the chi runs out, you start using the energy that your body needs to function. So if you do too much, you can really hurt yourself. And then the other aspect of Fachi, and this is what people didn't realize, and this is why a lot of the books, unfortunately, where they're talking about the 3-day battles and so on, I don't think it's real. Because Fachi burns a lot of your, I said burns, a lot of your blood as well. So whilst you're Fachiing, you're losing a lot of nutrients from your blood as well. So you can't just keep going and going and going and feel okay. Like, it's just not something that happens. So those stories in the books are fantastic. Yeah, they are. But the reality of thing, and this is what a lot of people don't, they don't, excuse me, they don't really want to kind of show the limitations of Neigong and what we do. But you can't just keep going forever. Like, there are limits to what you can do, and you need to rest and you need to break and so on. And there's this monk in London that I go and see, and he fachis as well, and he does all sorts of things, but he limits himself to 5 patients a day because he's like, if I do more, I feel tired. It starts to drain me and starts to impact my everyday life. So he won't do more than 5 patients a day because it's too draining on him. So there are limitations, and if a lot of people are practicing, and if they practice fachi and they're pushing chi and not realizing how much they're actually draining from, not just their chi, but their blood as well. And yeah, if you push too far, things can go really badly very quickly.
Interesting. Rudi, so you mentioned that there's another gentleman in London that can Fachi?
I mean, there's people all over. There's not just a small handful of people. There's loads of people. I mean, there's a guy in Italy that can do it quite easily. There's the guy in London. There's people in Malaysia and Thailand, and I mean, in Vietnam and Indonesia. China has loads of people. There's some in Hong Kong. There's people all over. It's not just a tiny little handful of people. It's just many people kind of keep to themselves.
Right, right.
Actually, there's 2 people in London that can do it that I know of. So there's loads of people. If you look around and you're in the right communities, you can definitely find a bunch of people that can do it. So I studied with mainly these 2 teachers because they're well known in the West, but I know a bunch of other people that can do it, and I've learned little bits from different people here and there. I just don't mention their names because they're not known in the West anyway. So
Right.
if I mention, oh, I learned from Xiao and I learned from Li and I learned from from Jiang and from Leo, it doesn't. These names don't mean anything to anyone, They're
Right,
just
right.
random Chinese words that I'm kind of blurting out. But yeah, there's loads of people that can. It's not as kind of limited as a lot of people think it is.
Right, right. Yeah. Yes, certainly. I mean, like, one thing I learned over the years that, just because someone's public doesn't mean that they're exceptional. And just because uh, you only see a handful of people online doesn't mean that, like, in the real world there's like people that can't do it. And that's something that I've certainly learned as well. Rudy, so I want to go back a little bit to Master Jiang. So it sounds like Master Jiang was really like a heroic character. Like he really cared about his patients, and he really overexerted himself. So like, what was he just a really just kind-hearted man, and like he was just trying to help as many people as possible, and he really wanted to push himself so that to even sacrifice his own life or his just
Mm.
body to
I
help
mean, I can
people.
only speak of my experience with him, and my experience with him, like he was this really kind of nice guy, and that's my experience of him. And I mean, even if it wasn't, you shouldn't speak ill of the dead anyway. But my experience of him was he was just this really kind of nice guy. He always gave extra time to me. He would give me additional stuff. He would just kind of always help me out, and I never had any instance with him where he wasn't kind and he wasn't good. I mean, there's more than one aspect of a person, and different people get to experience different sides of it. But for me, he was this really kind, great guy. Um, and it's hard to say if it's you can be like, oh, it was the kindness that he felt for the patient. Maybe it was ego. Maybe he was just pushing himself because he wouldn't you know admit that he couldn't help this person. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying it's always easy to say, oh, it was kindness, but maybe he just felt like he wanted to help this guy. It's hard to say, but my experience with him, he was always this kind of kind, nice guy to me. And I know that's not everybody else's experience, but for me, he was really kind. He was really really giving. He always he was teaching. He was helping. He was doing everything he can to try and get those that really kind of put in the effort to make progress. And that's the memory that I have of him, is this genuinely kind, nice person. But
Very cool.
that's my experience of him.
Very cool. Okay. Rudy, so I'm sorry, I'm a little ignorant about like the lineages a little bit, but so Master Jing and Master Zhou are come from separate systems. Am I correct
Completely
on
separate,
that?
yeah, completely separate.
Completely separate. Oh, so they're completely separate. So those two had no connections between
Oh,
with
no,
each
they were
other.
friends. They were
Oh,
friends.
they were
They
friends.
knew
Okay.
each other. Yeah, yeah, they knew each other. I mean, back in the day, ages and ages ago, Master Joe and Master John knew each other, and Master Joe had. I mean, this is the story from Master Joe. I can't verify if it's true or not, but this is what he says is he was helping Master Zhang with the visa process and the process to move to I believe it was Malaysia back in the 90s or the early 2000s. Whenever Master Joe was kind of starting to get around and so on. Master Jiang, sorry, was starting to get around. So Master Joe says he was the one that had helped him to get the visas, and because he was already abroad and he already had connections and people that could help. So they were friends, but they were also slight rivals in terms of each one thought he was the better master and that had the better knowledge and the better abilities and so on. But they were friends. They were on friendly terms, and Master Joe was at the actual hospital, the Apricot Forest Hospital, multiple times over the years that it was open. So, but the lineages themselves are completely separate. So Master Zhang Feng is more of a Shaolin origin, and Master Zhou is very much Taoist.
Oh,
So yeah, very very different.
interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So Master Zhou is Taoist and Master Jiang is like more Shaolin and Buddhist. Very interesting. Okay. Okay.
yeah. So Master Zhang is Shaolin Buddhist, and then Master Zhou is Buddhist Taoist. So
Oh, Buddhist.
both of
Okay.
them has this Buddhist aspect to the actual
Interesting.
lineage. So Master Zhang's core teacher was this Buddhist monk, wasn't he? I mean, people know him. I don't want to butcher his name, and for the life of me, it doesn't it's coming to my head. I think it was Kong or something like that. But then Master Zhou's master was a Buddhist monk, that was fleeing during the the kind of rough times that they experienced.
Oh,
And he ended up in a Taoist temple, and he kind of rose to the ranks of being the main teacher there. So he was
oh,
Buddhist when he got there, and then he kind of learned all the Taoist aspects to it as well. And then, yeah, like I said, Master Zhang's was Shaolin kind of Buddhist as well. So they both have this Buddhist aspect to it. There's this kind of core part of it, but then the internal power, I think, one is Shaolin and one is Taoist.
interesting. Is there, I mean, obviously there's difference between Buddhism and Taoism. Obviously, like Buddhist monks shave their head and things like that. There's obvious differences in their philosophy as well. But like energetically speaking, like, do you know of any differences between the two?
Buddhists and Taoists. Again, I can only speak of what I've been told.
Mhm.
So the Buddhists have kind of lost their juice, is the way that was explained to me. So they have all these ceremonies and stuff, and this is even in China, um, where the internal power aspect of their training had been lost over the years for whatever reason. And they didn't develop the type of internal energy that they used to back in the day, because they have all these ceremonies that require real juice, like real ability, real power to kind of, it's not just about repeating mantras, it's actually about having the chi, the energy to facilitate the ceremonies that need to be done. So they would invite the monks from the Taoist temple to come and do these ceremonies for them, because they couldn't do them anymore. So, I mean, in terms of differences of philosophy, I couldn't really tell you all that much. I mean, everybody knows Buddhism, and there's various different, variations of Buddhism that you can learn, and then there's Taoism, and there's all these various different variations of Taoism that you can learn. But the one thing that I was told is they kind of lost their juice. So they used to have really intense internal power, the same as the Taoists, but then that side of things was lost over the years. But I can believe that side of things, because if they have ceremonies that require chi and require really high development to do, that's it's Buddhist ceremonies. It's not like Taoist ceremonies that then you would imagine that at one point they had the ability to do these ceremonies themselves. So that makes sense to me. That and for me, it's always been. It just seemed that that's how it is. That you require some real internal development and real levels of chi development to get what you're supposed to get out of the Shen development as well. So I've always been of the mind that if you don't do the Dantian development and the Qi development and the channel development, that the later stages of practice will just not really do what they're supposed to do. But that's kind of my opinion. It's not really anything more than that.
Interesting. So
No, so I mean, the levels is a very difficult thing to kind of put into perspective. So, I mean, in my system, I talk about the 4 levels, and these are just the first 4 stages of development that I just put down as level 1, 2, 3, and 4. But are they actually referred to as levels? No, they're not. Like, not in the systems that I come from. They're just stages of practice. This is what you do, and then you do that, and then you do that, and then you do that as you reach the levels that you're supposed to, or the achievement you're supposed to achieve per level. But with Master Zhang Feng's, I mean, now this is a long time ago. I don't want to butcher it, but I believe there was 9 core levels of or 9 core areas of development, or the way that they described it. But that doesn't mean that each level didn't have multiple smaller variations or smaller increments within them. And then Master Zhou has never kind of talked about 72 levels, but again, with him and with Master Zhang Feng for that matter, there was never names of practices, names of postures. They were never given. It's just, do this, go practice. Then when you've achieved what you're supposed to achieve, okay, now do this. And then, okay, you've achieved what you're supposed to achieve, now do this. So it's really hard to say, but none of them, the only kind of number was the 9 different stages. And then I could be wrong. I believe that's what it was with Master Zhang Feng. And then with Master Zhou, he's never quite talked about the different levels. It's just always just, do this, do that, do this, and then you just kind of train. And there's no names, there's no anything. It's just, do this, go train. You get shown something once, you have to go train. And then you get tested in 6 months or a year or 2 years, or however long it takes to achieve that level of development. And then you get something new. But the biggest issue is getting them to actually teach. So it doesn't matter how many levels there are. It matters how many levels they're willing to teach, and
Oh,
that's I think the thing that a lot of Westerners don't really consider is like it doesn't matter how many levels there are if they're not willing to teach them. What difference does it make? So
right,
it's more about how many levels do we have access to, and I'm just I'm grateful for whatever I can learn because
right.
I know how difficult it is to kind of get stuff, especially the more advanced you get, the more unwilling they are to teach to just about anyone. And I mean, it's understandable. There's some things that do become quite dangerous and so on, but it's hard to learn. So in terms of 72 levels, I couldn't tell you. It's not really taught that way, if that makes sense to you.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for letting me know that. So a similar question perhaps, hopefully it's not like too disrespectful to Master Jiang, but obviously tragically Master Jiang passed away. Within, yeah, because I mean I was unaware that Master Jiang was Buddhist. But I mean within Taoism, there's ideas, concepts of when you die, you become a certain immortal, ghost immortal, celestial mortal, and such. Like, I don't know if there's a similar comparison to that within Buddhism. I'm uneducated in that, but like if you look at it from a Taoist perspective, I wonder what he has become. Is my question making sense?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I understand what you mean. So it's hard to say because we just don't know. I mean, all these hungry ghosts and immortals, and so you've got the different xians and so on, and um, they're just things that we kind of learn about. So are they real? Do they actually happen? And so on. It's hard to say. The only thing that I know is, and I've told this to other people in the past before, is when Master Zhang Feng had passed away, they said that he hadn't attained the stage that he would not reincarnate. So he would reincarnate, um, which I often use to kind of keep students who are too eager at bay and say, now look, Master Zhang spent 35, 40 years of his life meditating and practicing it. And he hadn't reached the stage of not reincarnating. So it's not that easy. It takes a long time to kind of get to those levels where you become truly realized and you don't have to come back and you leave this world of your own will and so on. So it's a very difficult thing to achieve.
I, I,
But
I'm I'm
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So can I ask that one more time? You're saying that Master Jiang believed that he was going to reincarnate?
No, no, no. So the goal of all these systems is
Right, is to not
it's
reincarnate.
realization. It's just not
Right,
reincarnate. It's to not
right,
reincarnate, isn't it? To achieve ultimate realization. So
right.
whether that's the Indian systems or the Chinese systems or whatever. But when he had passed away, we were told that he had not achieved the stage to not have to reincarnate. So that's pretty much all I know. And this is something that I was
Really?
told. So
Wow.
like, is it true? Is it not true? It's hard to say. But for me, it's always been a good way to, like I said, to keep kind of students who are too eager, at bay. So look at 40 years of him dedicating his life, and he
Right.
spent time in caves. He spent time doing all sorts of things that the average person doesn't do. And he hadn't achieved it. And even if you go to Tibet and you look at all these monks that spend all their time in the caves, and they never achieved rainbow body or anything like that. It's hard. It's really, really hard to achieve these things. And if you're a Westerner that meditates an hour a day and you think you're gonna kind of get there without really intense sacrifice, then I think you're lying to yourself a little bit. It's hard. It takes a
Wow.
long time. It's really hard work, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's decades and decades and decades of practice. It's
Wow,
yeah. It's
that is certainly an eye opener. I mean, I thought, with my uneducated mind, like I thought Master Jang was possibly like a very high level immortal. By now, it's just that
No,
was
I mean, he was a very high level, practitioner. He was extremely high, but in terms of having reached the end of development that we can achieve as humans, like no, he was a bit away. I mean, he was nowhere near as developed as his teacher, his own master. So just by comparing them, that there's more for him to have developed anyway. But no, he was certainly more developed than the average person by a long shot. But in terms of being an immortal, no, no, not even close. But again, this is my understanding. It's not you know it's not necessarily that everything I say is correct. It's just my understanding of things and what I was told and what I heard.
Interesting. Yeah, that's certainly an eye opener. So, so if you don't mind me asking, like, how far are guys like Master Jiang or Master Zhou, like how many years of training, to your knowledge, does it require for them to reach that stage of like immortality or rainbow body, so to speak?
Well, the issue is there's no guarantee you're going to get there, and this is
Oh
the
yeah,
problem. So
that's true.
you could spend 50 years and not get very far, or you can spend 50 years and actually reach the end. It just depends. So
Right.
it's almost impossible to say how far they are or how far they got, because just because you're training doesn't mean you're making progress. Just because you're putting in the time doesn't mean that it's actually bringing results. It's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And I'm always hampering on with my students about health. Like, you have to work on your health, you have to work on your diet, you have to be healthy, otherwise you're not going to make progress. Otherwise you're going to be doing all this training and not really achieving anything and just kind of paddling water. um, it doesn't mean that they made it. I'm not taking away from them. I'm just explaining how it works. But it's impossible to say how far along they are, because number one, they don't talk about it. They don't really brag about their achievements, so it's really hard to say. But number two, just because somebody's done for 50 years, it doesn't mean anything. They could have been spending 50 years just kind of deluding themselves. So it's a hard thing. And there's different stages of development anyway. So developing the energy body, it gives you a lot of juice, and you can use that juice for whatever you decide. So you can use it for healing, you can use it for martial purposes, you can use it for Shen-based practices to further the cultivation that you do. And just because somebody has a really high level of energetic development, so they can fa chi, they can do all these things with energy, doesn't mean they've got any Shen-based development. Do you see what I mean? So you
Right.
have to then go do those practices and put in the time and really work on morality and your character, and you know you know love for everybody, and connecting to the divine force and everything else. You have to do that, and if you don't do that, then yeah, you could be this super powerful guy that can fa chi and blast people with energy and go crazy, and have zero kind of Shen development. I mean, that's something that can happen as well. So the prerequisite for developing energy is health. You just need to be healthy. If you're healthy and you do the work, then you're gonna start to make progress. But then to reach the end goal of most of these systems, you have to put in the work. You have to do the work, and it's not a guarantee that you're going to achieve anything. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get anywhere. Some people you know just don't really do the work. They don't, they're happy with what they have.
Right, right. Rudy, you mentioned, love and morality and things like that. Do you think, you're obviously known for Facci and stuff. I'm assuming like morality or like love, these types of things are maybe not necessary for Facci per se, but like for your overall spiritual development. I mean, a lot of people emphasize that that's very important. That's like obviously essential. Do you feel the same way as well, or do you have a different view on that? Or
No, yes. So I think you can develop chi no matter what, but there is definitely a difference that happens in your body when you have pervading feelings of love when you train versus when you're angry and upset when you train. So you can make progress just being a kind of neutral person, I think, quite well. But if you're a bitchily angry, kind of stressed, or like hateful person, then I honestly think it would be impossible to make progress, just because your body in that state is not conducive to producing energy. It's not conducive to healing. It's not conducive to being a producer of energy. So I think that would be very, very difficult. So I don't necessarily think you have to you know cultivate all these feelings of love all the time, and then kind of be a little bit hippie-ish, if you know what I mean when I say that. I don't feel like you have to be like that, but I don't feel like you can be hateful and angry all the time and make progress. I think that would be very, very difficult to achieve, because health is the thing. Health is the thing that will determine if you make progress or not. And if you're always angry, if you're always, kind of raging, your body will deteriorate. Like, it will. It's guaranteed. You see people that are angry all the time, and they always develop liver issues later in life. They always develop all sorts of health issues that come with that, that kind of state of being. So you at the very least have to be neutral. If you can be neutral, then you've got a chance of making some good progress, chi wise and so on. But I feel like it becomes very difficult not to kind of gravitate towards being kind and being good, at least if you're practicing a lot. But then everyday life brings your true character back into play. So I've seen loads of people, they're on retreats, and it's all love and beauty, and everything is just precious and wonderful, and then they're back in life, and then some bills hit them, or they get
Right.
behind, or traffic's really bad, and they're in a rush to get somebody, and then you just kind of see, like, they've not really made any progress. Like, it's easy to be kind and good in a very specific environment, but true change is something that's a bit harder to achieve. But slowly it will happen if you allow it to happen. But it's such a complex thing to try and explain.
Right. Yes,
That
certainly.
there's so many aspects that I need to explain for this all to make sense. But yeah, no. So you can make progress without being super kind of devoted to love and morality, and cultivating compassion and everything else. But yeah, I don't think if you have the opposite of that, the anger and the hatefulness, that you can. I don't think you can.
Interesting. So, I mean, this is a similar question to that, but when it comes to enlightenment, or like, in Christianity, like Orthodoxy, they have the concept of like theosis or deification. Maybe Sufism like has something similar to that as well. And I don't know a whole lot about the Gnostic side of things, but basically this concept of enlightenment. Some people, I've heard theories that some people say that pretty much when it comes to like if you can get rid of your ego and attachments from this world, and like if you focus on meditation and just pray and devote your life to God and be righteous, like that's all it takes. Like these like film the Dantians, or maybe like from the Vedic perspective, like uh enhancing the chakras and things like that are unnecessary. What is your view on that? Do you think that you kind of need to do a little bit of both, or you can just go the righteous route, so to speak?
I think there are very special people that can just go the righteous route. Okay, I think there are people that can do that, but they're unique. They were born with a very specific kind of soul and a very specific kind of being. They're the exclusions to the rule. I think, honestly, and this is based on all my experience, is that you need the energetic development to get the end stage developments that are required for enlightenment, or whatever it is you're looking to achieve. I honestly think you need both. That's my experience, that's my opinion, and that's kind of that's just what I see. It doesn't mean that there aren't people who can do it without it, but I think they're the special sort. And I think if you look at Tibet and Rainbow Body, and you see how many monks are actually successful, out of thousands of monks that all do the same thing. They all spend decades in little huts meditating, well, cumulatively, not all in one go, but like a year, and then 2 years, and 3 years, and they just do this for their entire lives, and they'll spend decades in isolation meditating, and then one out of 1,000 is successful. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard to do. But they do a lot of energetic development as well. So they do a lot of, all the Tumo stuff is quite energetic, and it opens the channels, and it's, even if it's not necessarily dantians, but it's definitely the channels and the chakras and energy systems within the body that need to get vitalized and energized, and energy flow needs to be perfect. And most of them fail.
Right.
So I think it's very, very special people that can achieve it without the energetic development. I think the rest all need energetic development, but it's only still 1 in 1,000 that will succeed, and those are hardcore dedicated monks. You know,
Mhm.
1 in 1,000. I mean, 1 in 1,000 is just my rough guess based on what I've seen in the past. It's not an exact figure, but hardcore monks, 1 in 1,000 succeeds. So I think it's more difficult than people realize to actually get there.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Um, Rudy, what is your view on we touched upon like deities and things like that a little bit, but do you believe in do you believe in God, or do you believe in I don't know what the Chinese term for God is. This Shen, or the Shen is like not God,
No, this is yes. Xian would not be a main god. God, what's the name
but
for God in Chinese?
but like the Western like Christian type of understanding of God, like
Yeah.
do you believe in that, or is your view on God totally like, or is your like understanding of like higher being, like, is it totally Buddhist and Taoistic?
Well, uh, do I believe in a creator? Yes, I think there is a supreme being. Whether that's I'm not necessarily religious, but I do definitely believe in some intelligence and supreme intelligence behind the universe, and whatever that may be is difficult to describe. But I do believe there is some higher power out there that kind of oversees everything.
Interesting. Okay, okay. Very cool. Let's talk about your school a little bit. So Rudy, you mentioned that you don't want to reveal your full name and stuff like that, which is completely understandable. I mean, I as I'm like getting to be known and stuff, I'm becoming more and more like private too. So completely understandable. But like, what is your vision with your school? Like, do you think Nigong and energy work should be mainstream, or do you think it should be, you know, only a handful of people that should practice that are dedicated and serious? What is your opinion?
So my focus in my school is, yeah, so I advertise with a fachi, and I kind of regret doing that, the
Oh,
more I think about it. So I have such a big emphasis on health, and helping people to be healthy, helping people to feel, better than, they did when they started learning from me. That the fachi is excellent. It's amazing, and it's something to really work for. But so few people achieve it, and you just look around in the West, how many white people can do it? There's only a couple of guys. Um, so it kind of put me in this niche market of just fachi, and everybody thinks what I do is fachi. But what I do is I teach people how to increase their energy, their internal power, how to open their channels, which they can then use for healing, fachi. They can use for martial purposes if they're into that. They can use for shen development if they want to develop the character and morality and compassion and everything else. All of that you know is a choice. So I teach people how to be healthy. I teach people how to develop their energy system for whatever they want to use it for, whether that's fachi or martial or shen based practices. It doesn't really matter. So I regret the whole kind of fachi thing because it's so niche. So my goal with the school is to, I mean, obviously grow, because that's what all schools want to do, but I want to get a bunch of people to kind of my level of development, where they can do work by themselves, where they can fachi, where they can help people, and I want to benefit people in a way that knowing me and learning from me benefits their health above all. So I've got such a big emphasis on helping people, and helping with the suffering, the physical suffering. And I've been reprimanded by some other people saying, you should only focus on the mind, you shouldn't focus on the body. But I'm a doctor, and I really care about people not being in pain, not suffering, and so on. So my view with the school is I want to get some of my senior students to the point of being able to fachi and do things by themselves, so that school can grow. But then ultimately, with students, it's all about getting them to realize that health is the most important thing that you can cultivate. And once you have that, the rest is quite easy to develop. So energy becomes super abundant when you're healthy. And I think this is also a big misconception in the West, is like the Dantian and how it functions. So many people think the Dantian is this container, you just keep putting into it. You just keep putting into it. So if you meditate, it's going to, eventually be full. And that's not true. That's not how it works at all. So you can spend your entire life meditating and your Dantian will never be full. Well, full, just because it's not this container that you're constantly putting something in. It's more of an overcharge. It's a battery that you slowly activate, and you get more and more potential out of the battery. So if you're not healthy, then there's not extra energy to power this overcharge. Like in a let me use something kind of crude, like a game. Like, I don't know if in League of Legends, people who know games, so you've got your full health bar, and then you can get items that give you an extra health bar, an extra bit, it's an overcharge, a shield or whatever. So that's more the way that the Dantian works than anything. So all your meditation is slowly increasing that level of charge, but that charge is dependent on the body being full of energy. So later on in development, you get to a stage where you always have extra energy that goes into Dantian anyway. But if you don't have the health, then you're not going to develop that overcharge, and you're just going to kind of waste your time. And you have people that have been doing this for 10 years, and their chi levels are kind of pathetic. And that's because their health just doesn't allow them to build it. So my goal with the school, long story short, is to expand it and to have people actually achieve the level of chi that I know a lot of people want to achieve, but then just to get people healthy, get people learning how to move, learning how to exercise, and just be healthy. Because there's nothing worse than being sickly. There's nothing worse than being in pain all the time. There's nothing worse than not being able to enjoy your life because you're in pain or you're sick or you're unwell. So that's my personal goal, is get my students to develop the Fachi side, but then spread health awareness more than anything, and then get those that study with me to be as healthy as possible, and just get the right kind of knowledge about being healthy and what's good for you and what's not good for you, to more and more people.
Very cool. Yeah, that's certainly a wonderful thing. And I love what you said about, you got to focus on like the health and not the chi work and meditation. Like, or I guess what you're trying to say is like, without the health, like the meditation and chi work will be kind of useless. Like I have similar experience as well. Like no matter how much like, Zhuang or whatever I do, like it just seems like meaningless unless I'm like eating healthy, which I have a terrible habit of, sometimes like, starting to eat junk food and stuff. So I can completely relate to that and understand what you're trying to say. So I 100% am in agreement there. Rudi, what is your personal goal? We talked about how rainbow body enlightenment, achieving the body of light is so difficult. Like very few people can achieve that. Is that your personal goal?
It wasn't. So up until this point, my personal goal has always just been, I want to see if chi is real. I want to see if this electric, powerful chi is real, and if you can actually burn stuff and do all the things that they show in the videos. So I wanted to see if that was real. That was my initial goal. It was curiosity. I wanted to see, if it could be achieved. And then when I saw that it could be achieved, it was, what can I do with it? And the irony is, and like I'm putting people off what I teach actually by saying this, but the irony is that the chi is fantastic. It's amazing, but you can achieve so much, healing in terms of, if you're a doctor and you want to do this, for the healing aspect. Yeah, it brings people to you. So just that alone is fantastic, because you're going to have so many more people come and see you. You're going to be able to help so many more people. But how much the chi actually does in terms of benefiting the treatment is very, very little in comparison to the herbs and the physical manipulation and everything else. So it's not really, this huge thing. So I've done that part now. And then I was like, well, what do I want to achieve afterwards? And that's learning all the Dien Shu, do you know what that is?
I do not.
So Demok, the
The
Pokey
Dimmock,
people,
yeah.
so Demok stuff, but Demok for medicine, and not necessarily martial aspect, but the Demok for medicine. So that's what I'm currently studying. I use it obviously for medical purposes, so opening channels and helping people, energy flow to improve in the body and so on. So you can either close or open channels, but I learn the medicine, the medical side of it. So and then learning the Fu, so the Buddhist magic stuff. So I mean, you could, I don't want to call it casting spells, but projecting your intention into something and bring about a physical result. So, for instance, you have a napkin with alcohol on it, and you press it on somebody's skin, and they'll feel cold. And then you put energy into it, and then you press it on the skin, it'll feel like they're burning. So the same napkin, and then you put energy back into it, intention, and then it will feel like they're being stabbed by something. So that's an example of a very kind of basic example. But that's also something that I'm busy studying at the moment. So a big interest in that. And then in terms of enlightenment and rainbow body, I it seems to me such an impossible task that I work towards being compassionate and helping others and being a good person. I do all the practices that I can do, but I'll do as much as I can. I think is the best answer I can give. So I would love to achieve enlightenment and just touch the stream of God. And just kind of know reality at its core. Like I think that would be amazing, but is it feasible? I don't know. But
Right.
mine is, my what drives me is more curiosity, and I want to see, I want to experience, I want to do this. It's not so much I have to reach enlightenment because I don't want to come back. I don't want to be like, I don't have any of those kind of feelings. I'm just curious. I want to experience as much as I can, whilst I'm here, whilst I'm able to. So for me, a lot of things is curiosity. So the health side is like a genuine desire to help people because, like I hate people suffering. But then the meditation side is curiosity. I want to see what's possible. I want to see what's real. I want to, I want to walk through a wall and see if it can be done. I want to levitate and I want to see if that can be done. I want to, some of the enlightened yogis, they'll talk about the touching the stream of God and how profound that. I want to experience that, just to experience it. So a lot of what drives me, I think, is just experience for the sake of experience. To experience things, to see things, to know things, to get a chance to see the things that most people will never get a chance to see. I think that's what drives me for a lot of things. So do I want to be enlightened? I don't have that specific kind of drive. I want to experience what it's like. I want to experience these things. So yeah, it's a thirst for experience, I think, as opposed to wanting to achieve a specific state. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me. Rudi, what do you make of this world currently? Rudi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are Ukrainian.
No. I'm British. My wife, yeah, my wife is Ukrainian. We were in Ukraine when.
I apologize. I don't know where I got that info from. Maybe I thought you looked sort of Ukrainian. I apologize. That was unnecessary.
People mistake me for being Ukrainian when I was in Ukraine because I apparently look a little bit Russian, so a little bit Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Russian,
Maybe
I just Slavic look.
felt that way.
But no, I'm British. My wife is Ukrainian.
Okay, yeah, maybe I heard that accidentally from your student or something like that. I totally thought that was the case for whatever reason. But where was I? Oh yeah, but so the state of this world currently. I was just gonna mention to you about like the wars going on in Ukraine, like Israel, all this kind of stuff. Like but not just that. But what do you make of like the suffering? You touched on the suffering earlier. What do you make of like the suffering that's going on in this world? Like, do you think us chi people, so to speak, like, do you think we can maybe contribute to some form of change in a way, maybe through meditation or maybe through like us just being like who we are by being kind and maybe sending a little chi and helping, like is there maybe like any kind of difference we can make?
Well, there are plenty of people that will tell you that for every enlightened person, it raises the vibration and the frequency of the people around them. And the more developed you are, the more you bring people up. So you don't actually need that many developed people to bring up an entire nation. So that's what others are saying. I don't know is the answer. So I help those that I can. I help those that have the the luck or the opportunity to come and meet with me or meet with Master Zhou, whatever. I help who I can. If I open my focus and I allow everything to come in, the end result is just anger. is the issue. So I just get so angry. Like, I don't understand why all these people are suffering because politicians don't agree, or like it annoys me. I get sucked up into the anger of it, the frustration. So I don't. I do what I can, and I kind of stay away from too much news. I stay away from too many things because I can't do anything about it. So does my level of development bring those around me up? I don't know. It's a nice thought. It's a nice thing to think that's how it is. But I just tend to do what I can to help people. So for me, that is teaching people that show up to the school, helping people that come to me that need help with their health and so on. And then you're doing what you're doing. You're spreading awareness of spiritual practices and people and so on. So you're doing your version of helping. What more can we do than just doing what we're able to do? I think so. You're doing your thing, which is different to my thing, but we're all doing what we can. And I think there's a big pitfall in wanting to help everybody because you can't. And if you allow it, then it brings frustration and anger, and like it's not conducive to making progress. It's not conducive to being healthy.
Yeah.
And I mean, recently I turned off all the news on my phone. I don't need to see it anymore because I just get so frustrated with everything. So the world is the way that it is because there are people that want it to be this way. Can I stop that? No. So I don't want to allow that to affect me in a way that limits my ability to help people in the way that I can. Do you get what I mean? So if I'm too concerned with that, then it affects me physically, it affects my health, and that affects my ability to help other people in the way that I actually can help them. So I try and avoid. Obviously, it's horrible, all the things that are happening. And I mean, I've got personal experience with Ukraine, and everything with Gaza and Israel. I don't care who's right and who's wrong. It's just there are people suffering. So is it necessarily needed? So it's not. I mean, there's never a need for people to starve or to to die because of some So yeah, but I can't do anything to change it. So I just do what I can to help those that I can. I think is the most realistic thing that I can do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's certainly an answer that I agree with as well. There's very little I can do, and it's frustrating, but it is what it is. So all I can do is the best I can to just spread awareness. Yeah, that's certainly true. Let's go back a little bit to the Dantian stuff a little bit, Rudi. You're very knowledgeable about the Dantian, and like you talked about the misconceptions about the Dantians. Do you feel the same way about chakras as well? Maybe you can't speak for the chakras because you aren't obviously come from a yogi or Vedic understanding, but do you know much about their system?
It's kind of difficult to say because I've done both systems.
Sorry.
So I've done both systems, and I've got a big interest in the yogic traditions, by the way. So like I really like the higher level stuff. So I have a big interest in that as well. On top of the Negong, because for me the Negong is it's power, it's energy, and everything else. But then there are other systems that I feel have slightly better Shen-based practices or practices that cultivate kindness and compassion and so on. So I kind of do what I feel has the best results. I don't necessarily just focus on one system. So I'm not just Master Zhou's system. I do different aspects of different systems that give the best results, and that's the way that I teach as well. If I only taught one system, this is the issue with ego is everybody thinks their system is perfect and it's the best, and that's very rarely the case. So it's always going to find this person for level 1, their version is better than our version, so why not do that? It brings better results, it's quicker. So it's a difficult kind of comparison because every system is slightly different, but if the navel chakra is fired up and open, does that equate to a dantian being fired up and full of chi? No, it doesn't. So it's a weird thing, but they kind of mesh together. It's just, it's a different state that you're trying to achieve. Like a dantian, you're trying to overpack and overcharge this area, whereas the chakras, you're just trying to activate and balance them more than anything, aren't you? So you're not trying to pack these centers full of energy, whereas you're trying to do that with Nagel and Neidan. So is it the same thing? No. Is it? Do they go together really well? I think they do. To be honest, I think developing the 3 dantians and then developing the 7 chakras, if you're doing that side by side, give you really fantastic results as long as you understand the concept of earthing chi and bringing chi back down again. But yeah, it's a difficult question because you can't really say for sure. I know everybody thinks when you reach a certain level of development that everything in your body is just crystal clear, because there's so many books that say that that's how it is. But I mean, the books are books, aren't they? The reality of things is some people are super sensitive and others are not. So you can have the same development, but one person feels everything happening and another person doesn't. And I'm just one of those people. I don't really feel all that much happen. So I've got great development, but do I feel currents running here and there and how it flows in my body? Like most of the time, no. Which I think a lot of people find quite strange, because they're like, oh, but you surely you feel everything, and not really. So I don't know. Is the question really? I mean, I know you wanted more than that, but it's hard to say.
Hard to say, yeah. But if you could give like a simple answer, like there's chakras and dantians are for sure different.
Mm-hmm. I think they're different, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's my experience. Yeah, that's my experience. So
I maybe you're educated on this. I'm certainly not. The Hermetic side of things, the Kabbalah and stuff, don't they have their own version of chakra sort of thing? It's something with an S.
I don't know if it's you're talking about the the shape, the Superman kind of figure, isn't it? The Cabal.
Isn't there like 6? I'm so educated on that, uneducated on that.
Same though, unfortunately. I think in the end, everything kind of fits together. It's just different layers of the same thing, more than anything. So the 3 dantians is more on the physical layer, I find. And the chakras is slightly, it's more on the energetic level, even though that sounds contradictory, than the dantians are, at least in my experience. The dantians for me are very physical things within the body that become charged with energy. Like a muscle and a heart and a physical brain. It's not this magical kind of energetic container. It's physical things within the body that you're just overcharging, which then leads to an interaction with the spiritual in a way that's slightly different. Whereas the chakras for me are more on the energetic level than the dantians are. And for instance, the base chakra, I find the sensations of the chakras are more within the spine itself, whereas the dantians for me are more in the front of the body than anything.
Oh, so that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? This is just my experience of it. So nothing can be answered and as a complete fact. It's hard to say, but
right. Yeah, certainly. I guess one more energy center that's like, that you're probably familiar with is the meridians. Like I've read tons of books, not tons, but like I've read some books, and some books talk about, like, I don't know if you read the Falun Gong book or not, but it talks about how, like, I hope I'm not misquoting the book and I'm not respecting their belief system, but I don't think they talk about the dantians a whole lot. They're more about like if you unblock all the meridians, you can become enlightened, and like they call it the milk white body. They don't call it the rainbow body. They call it the milk white body, or if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. But their emphasis is more on like unlocking all the meridians in the body, and that leads to like enlightenment. Like what is your take on that? Do you think meridians are like essential and like what is your take on like unlocking meridians or opening up meridians?
Well, we do a lot of that. So it's a big part of Neidan. It's a big part of Neigong is having energy flowing through the body in a way that's completely unimpeded. So if you think of the dantians as reservoirs of energy or converters of energy, I mean, even you could say, where energy is refined into a different state of energy for a different purpose. But then that energy runs through the meridians. So the more the meridians are open, the the better this process happens, the healthier you are, the better your experiences with meditation are and everything else. So would having all the meridians being completely open lead to you know um, enlightenment? I don't know. I don't know, but it certainly wouldn't hinder the process. I think it certainly wouldn't stop it from happening or make it harder to happen. So the I just find that it's easier to clear meridians and open meridians and have them flowing freely when you have more chi, when there's more oomph running, through the body. It's so much easier to open meridians than if you have this tiny little trickle of energy. You know what I mean? So it's flushing pipes. Think of it that way. If you have highly pressurized water running through, you're going to have a much better kind of success than just kind of opening a tap and trying to run through and flush out the breeze and so on. So it's it's it certainly helps in my opinion, but I don't know Falun Gong at all. I don't know if they do any sort of energetic development where they increase the amount of energy within the body. Because if you look at the theory behind Neidan and Neigong, it's eventually the whole body becomes a dantian. So that would kind of go in line with your white body level of development, where it's not just the low dantian now that stores the energy, but it's the entire body that just becomes energy, or an energy container, energy storage, which would lead to this white body that you're referring to. It may just be a case that they have different terminology. They don't really talk about it. But I don't know. I don't know. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to have, and focus on the meridian flow. It definitely does help. It's just dantians being developed just gives you a lot of energy to work with. That definitely, in my opinion, helps that process along.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I want to talk about a little bit more about your school because I certainly want to send my audience to your school if possible, since you came on, and like a lot of my audience is definitely interested in Fachi for sure. So what are some like realistic expectations of people that are looking for Fachi? I know you mentioned earlier that you don't really want you kind of regret like be known as the Fachi guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think a lot of people within Nigong, like, they're fans of John Chang and they want to, be like John Chang. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, but that's just a lot of what I see based on comments and like some of the interactions that I have. What are some realistic expectations people can have with authentic Nigong in your system?
So what I said earlier was more about, opening it up to more people as opposed to having this very kind of niche group of people that come to me. So because I everything I teach is so much related to health as well, that anybody would benefit their health if they came to learn from us, even if they didn't want to Fachi. That was my point more than anything.
Gotcha.
But realistic expectations. So if you start training and you wanted to experience what Fachi was like, 2 years. And then we can assist you by opening channels, and you can try and Fachi. And most people between 2 and 4 years of training can kind of do that assisted. And then in terms of being able to do it completely without any assistance, if you did quicker than 10 years, you're a bit of a savant, like you're really good. But between the 10 and 20-year mark is how long most people take if they achieve it. Like most people don't. And then this is something that's really sad, but it's true. Like most people don't ever achieve solo Fachi. But the ones that really put in the work, really work hard, and we obviously we help. So you come to the school, we're opening your channels, we're doing adjustments. So in November, I've got a seminar with my students. That's just me and them. We're going to be in Spain, and all I'm going to be doing is for 4 days.
Sorry to interrupt you. Did you say Damo Mitchell?
No, just me and my students.
I apologize.
Just me and my students. We're going to be in Spain.
Sorry, I apologize for that.
the purpose of the trip is literally me just opening their channels and enhancing their meditation, like benefiting their practice. So being in a school like this and instead of doing it by yourself, that's the difference is the help that we can give our students. So it means that people can achieve something a lot quicker. That's why people after 2 years can get to try, long before they can even do this by themselves. We can help them. We can open the channels and let them try, and they get to experience what it feels like. And then doing it by yourself, it's hard. So I don't want people, I don't want people to be put off by it, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to achieve. It comes with sacrifice. It comes with really, really working on your health, really, really working on a good lifestyle, and making sure that your mind is where it should be and everything is where it should be. Because doing something this extraordinary requires a body that is also extraordinary, doesn't it? So you
Right.
can't be this sickly person and expect to do these things. But yeah, realistically, people that come 2 years and you can get to experience Fachi for yourself if you work really hard. But the one thing that I can say with certainty is if you genuinely follow the advice that's given and follow the training and the recommendations, your health will improve exponentially. So that's something that I can guarantee. Whether you'll be able to Fachi with assistance or Fachi solo, that's something that depends on how much work you put in. But health-wise, you'll definitely feel better. Energy will be better, and then if Fachi is your goal, it can be done. It's hard. It's hard.
Very cool. Okay. Well, I think we'd be going on for about an hour, so I think we'll wrap this interview up now. Rudy, thank you so much for coming on my show. Like I said earlier, like I always got a good vibe from you, and I rarely, I mean, like never hear anything negative about your school, and like I'm friends with Jonathan Bogdan and all these guys in your school. They're such wonderful people.
Yeah, they
And
are.
yeah, I just can't say enough good things about you. And I really truly believe that you can make a massive impact within the chi energy industry, and not just that, but just maybe perhaps in the holistic health industry as well. And I think that sounds like that is what your vision is. So I really truly hope that you succeed, and I really truly hope that you can make a massive impact in people's lives. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I mean, apart from all the holistic goals, and like I do want people to do the Fachi. Like I want a load of my students to be able to do it by themselves. I think it's going to be the best marketing that I could have for the school, isn't it? If a bunch of my students are able to do it. So I'm working really hard towards helping them achieve that, and we're getting close with a few people. So hopefully in the next year or two, we're going to have some people come forward and yeah, hopefully make a big splash. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I think you've been too kind in your praise, but I try. I do what I can. I try to be honest. I try to be open, and we'll see how things go.
okay, sounds good. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Rudy. So
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care, man.
yeah. Okay.